What's up, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And this one I want to talk about why next week is going to be very crazy for the markets and do a quick analysis on SPY, Tesla, Nvda, and the QQQ and other tickers. But just note that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Moomoo link. If you deposit $100, you're guaranteed 5 free stocks. If you deposit $1,000, you're guaranteed 15 in total, not to mention an 8.1% APY on uninvested cash. The offer ends very soon, in just about a couple of weeks. Anyways, now let's talk about the markets. So, looking at SPY, as you guys can see, there's a bit of a downtrend right over here. And today the market tried to rebound as you predicted. But I said in my morning video, if you guys watched my video, I said the move might not last as the market attempts to rebound. And to watch that 575 area and then 577 above that, if that were to break, to watch those areas as resistance. So what did the market do? We rebounded exactly as predicted. And I said, watch out, guys. The market's in a tough area. I expected the market to consolidate as the day went on, but instead of doing that, we did do that initially, and then we saw a little bit of a dip towards the end of the day, which goes to show there's a lot more bears continuing to step in. Why? The GDP numbers were not as great. The earnings reactions were not that good from investors. Despite the fact that earnings weren't that bad on paper, we did see a lot of big tech stocks sell off, such as like Meta, even Apple sold off a little bit. And on top of all of that, we have a lot of uncertainty about the election. I think there's a lot of uncertainty. The market's kind of selling off a bit. It may sell off even more approaching early next week. Now, is it going to last forever? No, it's not a guarantee, but it depends on what happens with the election, who wins, and what's going to happen. So I want to talk about why next week is going to be pretty big, then break down these charts in just a minute. The market was like a salad, very, very mixed today, some green, some red, all over the place. The big one worth watching was Amzn. We actually approached the 200 resistance, only to slow down after that. But overall, interesting day so far. Now, next week, next week is going to be crazy because we have two major catalysts coming out. The first one is going to be coming out on Tuesday. Tuesday's when we have the big election. So we have the two big candidates who are running for president. You guys can support whoever you want. I respect your opinions. But just know this, there's going to be a big reaction. Each of them have their own policy proposals, and the market's going to price in things differently depending on who ends up winning. Some of them want to increase tariffs and decrease taxes. Other ones want to basically take different approaches. It is what it is. Whatever happens, happens. But just know this, the market's going to see a crazy amount of volatility. So I'm expecting, on Monday, the market may sell off a bit, but as we approach the election on Tuesday, there might be some interesting volatility. Maybe the market dips a little more because it's very uncertain. And then after that, on Wednesday, the market's going to get its big reaction, whether it's a big pump or a dump. We'll have to wait and see. And then, so that's the first big factor, the election. The second one then comes out on Thursday because we have the notorious FOMC report with Jerome Powell giving a speech. Whatever Jerome Powell says could cause some high volatility. So get ready for that as well. So get ready, guys. We have a lot of stuff coming out. We have Jerome Powell giving a speech. We have new stuff coming out from the Fed. It's all coming out for the upcoming week. Besides that, there's not really much else that's coming out in terms of data, so just keep that in mind. On top of all of this, I want to call out that we have some earnings coming out. We just have like Berkshire Hathaway on Monday alongside Palantir. On Tuesday, we have Supermicro and a few more. On Wednesday, we have ARM and many others. Thursday, we have DraftKings, and most of the earnings are more minor now compared to what we saw last week, which is basically this week. And then, once again, we have the election. So with the election, guys, I mean, in all honesty, I don't know what kind of reaction we're going to get after it's officially done with. Once we know which candidate wins, I don't know for sure. Are we going to see a big pump after someone wins and then a dump later? Or are we about to see a big dump? It could go either way. But honestly, guys, there's no point in me trying to predict everything like that. I'm just going to say this. Approaching the election, we still have another 2 trading days until the election ends up coming. The market is looking more bearish approaching it. So SPY looks like it's going to be testing 569. If that fails us, we're looking for 565 and then 563 for this gap fill. We look more bearish, especially as we got this rejection. So I favor downside a little bit more approaching the election for the time being. On ES, we have 57.47 as our support. If we don't hold that, I'm going to be looking for this gap support down here around the 50, basically very low 5,700 area. This is actually where we have this imbalance. And if we lose 5,700, I think we easily fill the gap for 5,633. The daily chart on ES has that gap to fill. Now, could we dip to fill the gap and then get a bounce after the election? Maybe, but it all depends on what ends up happening. For Nvda, we're kind of rejecting here as well in the daily. We need to reclaim 138. Otherwise, there's a risk of us testing this imbalance again towards 132. And then we also have this like gap to fill down here around like the 128 area. So we look a little bit more bearish. That's looking very probable to me as well. For Bitcoin, the daily is slowing down. We're basically looking for 68,000 as our next support near the 20 EMA. So give this the time it needs. For NQ, we're barely holding 20,000. If it holds, we could approach 20,300, then reject. And if we lose this, we're looking for a dip all the way down towards 19,800. Not to mention this gap fill back down towards 19,500. So I do think we might dip a little bit lower for the time being, but then it all depends on the election. The QQQ is stuck between 490 and 484. If 484 fails us, we're looking for a dip back down towards 479. Not to mention the gap fill for 474. So we'll have to see how things end up going. Apple's attempting to rebound, but it could reject and start dipping lower. I think Aapl might attempt to push for about 224 early next week before it continues to dip. But I still think there is a risk of a little bit more downside. Still looks kind of weak right here, so give it a little bit more time to develop. The market is in a very, very interesting place. Yields are going up because of what the market's pricing in. A potential shift in the way that the government ends up kind of like increasing its revenue. I'll probably talk more about that in my video for later on. But just know that the market's in a very, very dire place. It's very uncertain, and we just have to give it more time to develop. We may see a little bit more downside from any of these tickers, even if you look at like Tesla. I think I kind of skipped over this by mistake. Looking at Tesla, for instance, the same thing's essentially going on. We have a double top. Tesla's dipping to its 20 EMA. I think we might be approaching 243. And then if that fails us, we're looking for 235 as our next targets. If we lose both of those, I think we fill the gap going all the way down to the 217. It's the 217, 220 area. So there's going to be a big jump if we lose those two supports. We'll have to see how things end up going. But anyways, guys, as far as the market goes, anticipate a little bit more downside early next week. The election is going to be looking for a big reaction on Wednesday. And then on Thursday/Friday, we have FOMC. Thursday is when we have the FOMC day with Jerome Powell's speech. But typically, we have a very big reaction right after on the next day. So that's after we get the information from the Fed. So we'll see, guys. It's going to be a crazy week. I would say like the last 3 days are just going to be insane. So we'll see how things end up going. But expect some high volatility. Some downside is going to be starting things off. And we'll see what happens with the election coming out. Just know that I'll try my best to release a video tomorrow to talk about the economy just very briefly. Hopefully I have time to do it. Otherwise, I will be back on either Saturday or Sunday. Until then, I thank you all for listening. Have a great weekend and peace out.